The neural collar chimed 3 times, summons to Lord Commander Zix's private chambers. Alexis touched her neck where the metal met flesh, the skin there permanently raw despite 5 years of wearing the device. She straightened her gray consultant's uniform and left her sparse quarters, passing the curved viewport one final time. Earth was no longer visible, just endless stars stretching into the void. 2 Valthrix guards flanked her, their chitinous exoskeletons gleaming under the ship's blue-white illumination. They never spoke to her directly. No need to communicate with tools. The doors to Zix's chambers parted with a soft hiss. Unlike the utilitarian design of the rest of the vessel, his quarters displayed the opulence befitting the 3rd highest commander in the hegemony fleet. Treasures from 100 conquered worlds adorned pedestals, crystalline sculptures from the Andromeda expeditions, living metal artifacts from the Cygnus genocide, and most disturbing, a preserved human hand floating in a stasis field, still wearing a wedding band. Consultant Chen. Zix's voice emerged from his mandibles as a series of clicks translated by the room's audio system into flat, emotionless standard. Your tactical analysis of the Epsilon Rebellion proved useful. Alexis kept her eyes downcast, the expected posture of a Class C servant. I serve the hegemony, Commander. Zix moved toward a holo display, his 8-foot frame towering over her. The display showed Haven Colony, a settlement of 30,000 humans established on a mineral-rich moon in the Proxima system. Her sister Maya lived there with her family. Your species consistently underperforms in resource extraction, Zix chittered. Haven Colony has missed quota by 3% for the 2nd consecutive cycle. There were atmospheric storms, Commander, Alexis said carefully. Production was hampered by. Irrelevant. Zix cut her off. The sacred algorithms of the hegemony are perfect. Quotas account for all variables. His compound eyes reflected the blue light of the display. The colony has been scheduled for recycling. The human biomatter will be processed into nutrition supplements for more productive settlements. Alexis felt her heart hammer against her ribs, but kept her face impassive. Any display of emotion would only amuse him. When will this occur, Commander? Now. Zix tapped a crystalline control. The holo display shifted to real-time footage. A hegemony destroyer moved into position above the colony. White energy gathered at its forward array, then lanced downward. The colony disappeared in blinding light. 30,000 souls. Gone. Maya. Her Niso. All erased for falling 3% short of an impossible quota. You may observe the efficiency, Zix said, mistaking her stillness for appreciation. This is why the hegemony has ruled for 3 millennia. Perfect order requires perfect consequences. Alexis nodded mechanically. Perfect order, she echoed. Later, alone in her quarters, she pried loose the panel she'd spent months carefully weakening. Behind it lay a jury-rigged communications device, built from components stolen one piece at a time. Her hands didn't shake. The time for fear had passed. The hegemony had miscalculated. They believed humans broken, domesticated. They hadn't recognized the true danger of their conquest. They'd given humanity nothing left to lose. Authorization. Phoenix Rising. She whispered into the transmitter, sending the coded message that would reach her scattered network. The Empire has cracks. Find them. She replaced the panel and lay back on her bunk, staring at the ceiling. For the first time since Earth fell, Alexis Chen smiled. The maintenance level of the immutable decree hummed with the constant drone of machinery. Alexis moved with practiced efficiency, her consultant's badge granting her minimal access to peripheral systems, just enough for her purposes. The Valthrix never questioned why she'd volunteered for extra shifts monitoring tertiary cooling systems. Work was the expected behavior of lesser species. Her maintenance terminal sat in an alcove between towering data servers. Few Valthrix ventured here. The heat and noise offended their sensitive antennae. The 7-limbed Morcalian technician Sieve worked nearby, his translucent skin showing the flowing of blue-green circulatory fluid. Neural interface checked today. Sieve whispered when no monitoring devices were active. Like all conquered species, Morcalians wore neural suppressors, though less restrictive than human models. They're altering connection protocols again. Alexis nodded slightly. Standard procedure. No. Sieve's central eye dilated. Special diagnostic for human interfaces only. Your species causes problems. He tapped his own neural port. Our minds flow like water into their systems. Human minds, like storm, chaotic, unpredictable. They call it defect. Alexis kept her expression neutral while her mind raced. This explained the increased testing recently. After thousands of years conquering species across the galaxy, the hegemony had encountered something new, a mind they couldn't fully integrate. When her shift ended, she took a calculated risk. Instead of returning to her quarters, she diverted to Data Archive Theta, a repository of scientific records technically off-limits to her clearance level. Her consultant badge would trigger a delayed alert, giving her 17 minutes before security responded. The archive terminal glowed with soft purple light as she bypassed the first security layer using credentials she'd memorized from watching Valthric's officers. The second layer required biometric verification, impossible to fake, but a maintenance override she discovered 3 months ago created a brief testing window. "Come on," she whispered, fingers dancing across holographic controls. The screen shifted to research footage. Valthric scientists surrounded a human subject, another consultant she recognized from engineering. Neural monitoring devices covered his head while he solved increasingly complex mathematical problems. The scientists chittered in agitation as the human's brain activity displayed on monitors, wildly unpredictable patterns that spiked and shifted in ways that made no sense to hegemony algorithms. Subject demonstrates cognitive anomalies. A scientist noted. Thought sequences lack proper order, yet correct solutions appear without logical progression. Implications for Nexus security. Severe. Alexis downloaded the data to a crystal chip she'd modified to avoid detection. The hegemony believed their neural network unassailable. Perfect crystalline pathways transmitting thoughts across their empire at light speed. But here was proof of their blind spot. Human intuition. The ability to leap past logical steps, to imagine outcomes without calculating each variable. Returning to her quarters, she examined her stolen data. The empire dominated through perfect order, but the human mind thrived on chaos, on intuition and emotional leaps their systems couldn't track. It wasn't just a weakness in their security, it was a fundamental incompatibility with their entire worldview. The proximity alert flashed on her hidden console. Someone approaching. She quickly concealed her work as the door slid open to reveal Lord Commander Zix himself, flanked by security drones. "Human Chen," he chittered, compound eyes gleaming. "You have accessed unauthorized systems precisely 17 times in the past cycle. Explain this anomalous behavior." The diplomatic reception hall of the immutable decree glittered with crystalline chandeliers harvested from the now-extinct civilization of Ta City. Valthric's nobility mingled with representatives from the Cygnus cluster, their translators converting the cacophony of alien languages into a harmonious blend. In the center of it all, Alexis performed. Her martial arts demonstration had been Lord Commander Zix's idea, a way to showcase his tamed human to the visiting dignitaries. What had begun as humiliation had become her salvation. After the neural collar interrogation 3 weeks ago, she convinced him her unauthorized system access was merely an attempt to study hegemony defensive techniques to improve her performances. The explanation appealed to his vanity. Her punishment had been reduced to sensory deprivation rather than execution. Now she moved through the ancient forms of wushu with deliberate grace. Her red exhibition uniform a splash of color against the metallic backdrop. The visitors chittered and clicked in appreciation, their compound eyes following her fluid movements. None noticed how each sequence brought her closer to the ceremonial power conduit connecting the reception hall to the ship's diplomatic wing. "The human will now demonstrate impact techniques," announced the protocol officer. On cue, Alexis launched into a spinning kick combination. The final move, a seemingly wild strike, sent her crashing against the power conduit. The impact sent painful jolts through her body, but the damage was done. Sparks erupted as the delicate connections separated. The reception hall plunged into darkness. Emergency lighting flickered on as security alarms wailed. In the confusion, Alexis slipped away through a service corridor she'd memorized during countless hours of studying ship schematics. The diplomatic hangar lay just 3 levels down. Security drones would be scanning for human biosignatures, but they would focus on living quarters and public areas. No one would expect an escaped human to head toward the most heavily guarded section of the ship. Yet the diplomatic hangar's security relied on credential verification rather than species identification, a vulnerability Alexis had noticed months ago. She pressed herself into a maintenance alcove as a patrol of Valthrix guards rushed past, their mandibles clicking in agitation. When they'd gone, she continued downward, using maintenance tunnels to avoid main corridors. The neural collar around her neck would normally have triggered by now, delivering paralyzing shocks if she strayed from authorized areas. The makeshift disruptor she'd built from stolen components gave her perhaps 20 minutes before the override failed. The diplomatic hangar's entrance loomed ahead, its translucent doors shimmering with security fields. Alexis removed a small device from her hidden pocket, a credential duplicator containing the diplomatic code she'd skimmed during her authorized maintenance sessions. She pressed it against the scanner. For 3 excruciating seconds, nothing happened. Then the doors slid open. The hangar contained a dozen vessels from various worlds. Alexis moved directly to a Calath courier ship, small, fast, and programmed for multiple jump points before returning to its home system. Unlike hegemony vessels, it lacked neural interface controls, relying instead on manual navigation that any species could operate. As she slipped aboard and initiated the launch sequence, the ship's communications array lit up with incoming transmissions. Security had finally noticed her absence. Too late. The hangar shields parted as her stolen vessel streaked into space, already calculating its first jump coordinates. On the bridge of the immutable decree, Lord Commander Zix received the alert with surprising calm. 1 human female, he chittered to his officers. 1 stolen diplomatic vessel. Deploy pursuit craft. His second-in-command awaited the expected command, but Zix merely tapped his control console thoughtfully. No. The ship's automated systems will return it to Calath space. Document the incident as escaped property. Value. Minimal. The resources required for retrieval exceed the subject's worth. What Zix couldn't know was that at each of the courier ship's 7 programmed stop points, members of Alexis's carefully cultivated network awaited, humans who had received her encrypted message and recognized the authorization code Phoenix Rising. The laboratory inside Kappa 9 had once been a hegemony neurological research facility before being abandoned during budget reallocations. Now it served a purpose its Valthrix designers could never have imagined. Alexis watched as Quan attached neural monitors to the temples of Specialist Rivera, a former Earth mathematician who had escaped a mining colony. The algorithms are running, Quan reported, his fingers dancing across the control panel he'd rebuilt from salvaged parts. They're identical to standard hegemony monitoring protocols. Rivera stared at the problem displayed on the holographic screen, a complex navigational calculation intentionally designed with missing variables. Under normal circumstances, the solution would require 16 separate computational steps. Don't solve it using their methods, Alexis instructed. Just find the answer however feels natural. Rivera nodded, dark eyes narrowing in concentration. After just 12 seconds, she spoke. Coordinates 37.429 by 182.544, compensating for gravitational distortion from the binary system. Quan's eyes widened as he checked the results. Correct. And the neural pattern. He projected the scan above the console. The image showed Rivera's neural activity, not the neat linear progression that hegemony systems expected, but a chaotic burst of connections jumping between brain regions, creating paths that seemed random but converged on the solution faster than any programmed approach. "It's beautiful," Daria whispered from her monitoring station. "To their systems, this looks like random noise, but it's actually intuition, creative problem-solving." Alexis approached the display, studying the fractal-like patterns. "Every human mind does this differently. There's no way to predict the specific path, only that we'll find one." She touched the hologram, rotating it, and the hegemony's perfect network can't process these patterns. They register as errors. Marcus, the teen's pilot, entered the lab carrying a data crystal. Test results from the Proxima colony defense grid. The chaos packets worked exactly as predicted. When the system encountered the human-generated randomness embedded in routine communications, it triggered a cascade of error corrections that eventually overwhelmed the primary processors. Alexis nodded. "How long was the grid down?" 17 minutes, long enough for 3 transportation vessels to slip away with volunteer workers. Marcus handed her the crystal. Nearly 3,000 humans now en route to resistance gathering points. On the main screen, a new alert flashed. Torres had succeeded in accessing the hegemony's primary communications hub on Centauri VI. Alexis opened the secure channel. "We're in position," Torres reported, her face tense beneath the hegemony maintenance worker disguise. "Security protocols neutralized. We can insert the Haven colony footage into the primary feed during the next Imperial broadcast." "Proceed," Alexis authorized. "Remember, no edits, no commentary. Just the raw footage Lord Commander Zix never expected to leave his private chambers." Hours later, across 17 systems, citizens of various species watched their hegemony-mandated news broadcasts suddenly interrupted by crystal-clear footage of Haven colony's destruction. The Empire had always hidden its brutality from its common citizens. Now they witnessed the casual genocide of 30,000 humans for missing a resource quota by 3%. Aboard the immutable decree, Lord Commander Zix's rage manifested in the destruction of an entire holographic array. "Find the human female," he shrieked at his officers, who cowered before his fury. "Priority Alpha alert. Full resources authorized." His second-in-command, Commander Varel, dared to speak. "Lord Commander, we've detected similar system failures across 12 sectors. The timeline suggests coordination between." Zix struck him, sending Varel stumbling backward. "A Class C species cannot coordinate interstellar resistance. Their neural architecture lacks the necessary complexity." He stabbed a chitinous finger at the galaxy map. "These are isolated incidents exploiting temporary vulnerabilities. Find Chen and these glitches will cease." As he spoke, 3 critical power distribution nodes, each light-years apart, simultaneously failed, plunging key hegemony facilities into darkness. The perfect synchronization of these attacks would have been obvious to anyone not blinded by prejudice. But the hegemony's belief in their own superiority had become their greatest weakness, one that Alexis Chen was exploiting with devastating effectiveness. "They never watch the ones they consider beneath them," Alexis explained to the gathered cell leaders, their faces illuminated by the soft blue glow of the secure quantum-entangled communication array. "That's where we'll build our strength." The network had grown exponentially since the Haven colony broadcast. Representatives from 17 human settlements joined the weekly strategic briefing, each leading their own resistance cells. On the main display, a galaxy map showed hundreds of pinpoint lights, each representing a human operative embedded within hegemony infrastructure. Maintenance workers on Centauri Prime have successfully compromised 15 security nodes, reported Lin, a former Earth systems engineer. Cleaning solution SL775 creates an untraceable corrosion that mimics normal degradation patterns. Elysium Gardens reports similar success, added Ramirez, coordinating the luxury resort world operatives. 32 signal disruptors planted. The hegemony believes they're experiencing standard atmospheric interference. Alexis nodded. "Perfect. Now we activate Phase 3. She brought up schematics for the Nexus synchronization system. Every 1,000 days, the Empire performs a millennial update, recalibrating their neural network to ensure perfect unity. The next update occurs in 17 days. Quan stepped forward. We've developed what we're calling the empathy virus. Not destructive code, but disruptive. He displayed the complex programming. It alters how the Nexus processes information about subjugated species. The changes are subtle, imperceptible to their security scans, but significant in effect. What will it do? Asked a newer recruit. Alexis allowed herself a rare smile. It will make them feel. The hegemony prides itself on logical purity. Emotional responses are filtered out by the Nexus. Our virus bypasses those filters, allowing natural empathetic responses when they observe suffering. They'll experience what they've inflicted on others, Daria added, not as punishment, but as awakening. The distribution protocol was methodical. Human technicians responsible for routine Nexus maintenance would introduce the modified code simultaneously across 83 key junction points. If even half succeeded, the virus would spread throughout the entire network during synchronization. 16 days later, the operation proceeded flawlessly. Only 3 operatives were detected. The remaining 80 achieved clean insertions. When the millennial update cascaded through the hegemony neural network, not a single monitoring system registered the subtle alterations now embedding themselves into the Empire's collective consciousness. The effects began within hours. On New Proxima, a Valthrix overseer halted a punishment protocol mid-execution, his mandibles trembling. On Hegemony Homeworld Valthrix Prime, citizens reported strange sensations when viewing subjugated species. Discomfort, unease, something the translators struggled to define as guilt. In the palatial High Council chambers, the Levin overlords gathered in unprecedented emergency session. Holographic displays showed spreading unrest across the Empire. Citizens questioning directives, officers hesitating to implement protocols, 17 systems in open rebellion, 34 experiencing civil unrest, 92 reporting cognitive contamination. The Grand Archon, 3 times larger than standard Valthrix and connected directly to the primary Nexus node, trembled with confusion. Find the source of this disorder. The intelligence director activated a holographic projection. Thousands of seemingly disconnected incidents plotted across Imperial space. Only when viewed from a distance did the pattern emerge. All points of disruption, all rebellions, all system failures, connected in perfect lines. The resulting image shocked the council into silence. A human face, recognizable as Alexis Chen, mapped across the stars themselves in acts of defiance. The pattern was unmistakable yet impossible to have been coordinated by traditional means. Impossible, whispered the Grand Archon, compound eyes widening. How could a Class C species orchestrate resistance across 3,000 light-years? The youngest counselor, his carapace still soft from recent molting, spoke the truth no elder would acknowledge. We never understood them. We classified them by their technology, not their potential. And now they've weaponized the very trait we dismissed as primitive, their unpredictability. The Hegemony battle cruiser Eternal Dominion hung in geosynchronous orbit above Tarsus IV, its silhouette blocking the light from the system's twin suns. On the mining colony below, 300,000 laborers, humans, Morcalians, and a dozen other subjugated species, watched the sky with dread. They had committed the unforgivable sin of declaring autonomy from Imperial control. On the command deck, Admiral Krex performed the sacred firing ritual, his chidnous appendages moving through the ceremonial gestures established 3 millennia ago. By the will of the eternal hegemony, he intoned, this world shall be cleansed and reborn in perfect order. The targeting computers locked onto population centers. The weapon capacitors hummed as they charged to full capacity. Admiral Krex placed his neural interface into the command receptacle to authorize planetary sterilization. Nothing happened. Systems malfunction, reported his second. Targeting arrays offline. Life support compromised. Power fluctuations detected in all sectors. The mighty vessel suddenly drifted powerless, its engines silent, its weapons dead. Similar scenes played out across 100 worlds as the Empire's military might, unchanged in doctrine or design for 3,000 years, found itself rendered impotent by an enemy that refused to fight according to established rules. In the Resistance headquarters on Kappa 9, Alexis studied tactical displays, showing hegemony forces attempting to respond to simultaneous crises across 17 sectors. They're deploying according to Imperial Battle Doctrine, Section 7, she observed, precisely as they've done since the Third Galactic expansion. They haven't adapted their strategy in over 600 years. Her team had spent months studying historical records of hegemony military operations, identifying patterns that had become rigid through repetition. Now they exploited that predictability mercilessly. Food distribution centers on Valthrix Prime reporting critical failures, Marcus announced from his communication station. Atmospheric processors on 7 core worlds showing irregular operations. Resource allocation algorithms corrupted in 32 systems. The strategy was deliberate. Target infrastructure, not military installations. Make daily life for ordinary hegemony citizens increasingly difficult. Show them that the perfect order they have been promised was an illusion. The most dramatic moment came unexpectedly. Governor Thal of Proxima Centauri, a high-ranking Valthrix administrator, appeared on an unauthorized broadcast across 17 systems. For 3,000 years, we have been told that the Empire brings perfect order. He chittered, his mandibles trembling with emotion previously unknown to his species. But I have seen the cost of this perfection. I have felt what we have inflicted. His compound eyes seemed to glisten with moisture, a biological impossibility for Valthrix physiology, yet somehow happening. Proxima Centauri hereby declares independence from the hegemony. We seek a new path, one of cooperation, not domination. Within days, 17 more systems followed, declaring autonomy from imperial control. In an emergency council on the hegemony homeworld, Lord Commander Zix, now elevated to Supreme Military Commander, finally grasped the full scope of what he faced. The human infection spreads from Earth, he declared, bringing up a strategic display. All evidence points to coordination from humanity's homeworld. We must excise the source. His plan was desperate but decisive. Consolidate 60% of the remaining fleet for a massive strike against Earth. Is such concentration of forces wise? Asked a junior commander. It leaves many systems vulnerable. The humans expect us to disperse our strength, Zix countered. They anticipate we will follow standard doctrine. Instead, we will surprise them with overwhelming force against their emotional center. Cut off the head, and the body will wither. The commanders approved the plan unanimously, none recognizing it for what it truly was, the final, fatal step into Alexis Chen's masterfully constructed trap. Far away on Kappa 9, Alexis watched hegemony fleet movements with quiet satisfaction. Right on schedule, she murmured, opening a secure channel to Earth. Operation Honeypot is a go. For 3 years, her operatives had been systematically reinforcing Earth's defenses, building what appeared to be a ragtag resistance, but was in fact an elaborate killbox, designed specifically for the Imperial fleet. The greatest victory in human history was about to unfold, orchestrated by a single mind that had found the perfect flaw in an imperfect empire. The Imperial Armada emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. 300 vessels arranged in the sacred Valthrix battle hexagon, their hulls gleaming in Earth's sunlight. At their center, the super dreadnought Immutable Decree had been transformed from a command vessel into an instrument of planetary destruction, its sleek profile now bristling with planet-killer weapons hastily retrofitted from other capital ships. On its command bridge, Lord Commander Zix gazed upon the blue-green world with compound eyes filled with hatred. 5 years ago, Earth had fallen in 6 days. This time, he would ensure it wouldn't exist by nightfall. Begin the purification sequence, he ordered, his voice eerily calm. No survivors, no prisoners, no negotiations. Erase humanity from the galactic record. Targeting systems locked onto major population centers. The primary weapon, a gravitational singularity generator capable of collapsing Earth's tectonic plates, began its charging sequence. From her position aboard the Defiance, Alexis watched the Imperial fleet with grim satisfaction. They arrived exactly when and how we predicted. She noted to her command crew. Commence Operation Honeypot. Across the Sol system, concealed defense platforms activated. From hidden lunar bases, asteroid belt fortifications, and subterranean silos on Mars, 500 vessels rose to meet the hegemony threat. A motley fleet of modified human ships, liberated hegemony craft, and vessels contributed by newly freed worlds. Each had been specifically modified for this single battle. Formation Chaos Prime. Alexis commanded through the encrypted tactical network. The Resistance fleet broke into seemingly random patterns, no discernible formation, no recognizable strategy according to any military doctrine in the Imperial Library. Valthric's targeting computers struggled to prioritize threats that refused to behave according to tactical algorithms. Simultaneously, Resistance hackers activated dormant viruses planted within the Imperial fleet's neural command networks through subverted maintenance protocols and contaminated system updates. Officer neural implants began reporting contradictory sensor data. Weapon systems targeted friendly ships. Navigation computers calculated impossible vectors. "My Lord Commander," a Valthrix officer reported, mandibles clicking in distress, "we're experiencing system-wide failures. Neural network contamination spreading exponentially." Zix slammed a chidness appendage against his command console. "Impossible. This world has no defensive capacity. We cataloged their technology during the conquest." The Defiance closed on the massive flagship, leading the surgical strike team through the chaos. Marcus piloted a boarding shuttle carrying 20 of their most elite operatives, each selected for specific skills needed to neutralize the command center. "The human vessel approaches," reported a tactical officer. "Intercept and destroy." "No," countered Zix. "Let them come. I want to face Chen personally before I obliterate her world." A direct communication channel opened between the vessels. Alexis's face appeared on the command bridge's main screen, her expression calm despite the battle raging around them. "Surrender now," she offered, "and we end this without further bloodshed." "Humans understand nothing of cosmic order," Zix snarled. "For 3,000 years, we have maintained galactic stability through perfect hierarchy. Without us, chaos consumes all." "Through fear and subjugation," Alexis countered. "You've forgotten what it means to adapt, to improvise, to survive against impossible odds. That's the essence of what makes humanity dangerous and wonderful." As they spoke, Marcus's team breached the flagship's outer hull, fighting their way toward the command center. Resistance ships systematically disabled the Imperial fleet's weapons without destroying the vessels themselves. Alexis broadcast to all hegemony ships simultaneously. "Your empire is already falling. Your choice now is simple. Retreat and live in a new balanced galaxy, or die for a crumbling empire built on lies." One by one, hegemony ships began powering down their weapons, individual commanders making individual choices for the first time in centuries, freed from the rigid neural control of Imperial doctrine. The immutable decree stood alone, its weapons still locked on Earth. In the Grand Hall of Humanity in New Geneva, sunlight streamed through crystal windows onto the assembled delegates. The room itself was a testament to resilience, built from the ruins of the old United Nations headquarters, incorporating materials from a dozen worlds. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, representatives from 37 formerly subjugated species had gathered for a historic moment. The Valthrix delegation sat quietly in their designated section, their once ornate royal carapaces now bearing the simple gray markings of civilian status. Among them was a figure that would have been unthinkable months earlier. Lord Commander Zix himself, stripped of rank and undergoing what humans called rehabilitation. His compound eyes tracked Alexis as she moved through the crowd, no longer burning with hatred but showing something new, curiosity. The final moments of the battle had transformed him. When Marcus's team had disabled the neural control hub of the immutable decree, Zix had lunged for the manual override, determined to trigger the planet-killer weapon with his dying act. Alexis's voice had stopped him with 6 simple words: "We've already disabled it. It's over." In that moment, with all his power stripped away, Zix had experienced something no Valthrix in 3 millennia had known: defeat without annihilation. The mercy shown by humans, a species he had classified as primitive, had shattered his worldview more effectively than any weapon. A hush fell over the assembly as Alexis approached the central podium. Her simple blue uniform bore no rank or insignia, a deliberate choice that had sparked debate among the provisional council members. They had unanimously voted to offer her the position of prime coordinator, with executive authority over the transition. "I respectfully decline," she announced, her voice carrying clearly through the hall. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Humanity's strength isn't in ruling others, but in showing what's possible when the impossible is the only option left. She gestured toward the gathered representatives. "Look at us. Methane brothers beside oxygen-dependent species, crystalline entities communicating with beings of flesh, predators alongside what were once prey." The hegemony believed such diversity required strict hierarchical control. They were wrong. Instead of traditional governance, Alexis proposed the Adaptive Council, a fluid structure that would evolve with the needs of its members, incorporating the strengths of each species. The Valthrix's organizational precision would work alongside human creativity, Morkalian empathy, and the temporal perception of the Kronos Collective. "Earth will not be the capital of a new empire," she continued. "It will serve as a symbol, proof that determination can overcome even the most overwhelming odds." As delegates rose in thunderous approval, Daria approached Alexis at the observation deck, overlooking the rebuilt Geneva skyline. "You could have ruled the galaxy," she said softly. "Instead, you've given it back to itself." Below in the garden, a group of Valthrix youth were interacting with human children, their natural hierarchical instincts giving way to genuine curiosity and play. Former enemies learning from each other's differences. "Our greatest victory wasn't defeating the hegemony," Alexis replied, her eyes reflecting the stars visible even in daylight, stars now open to all species equally. It was introducing something their perfect order never understood: beautiful, unpredictable chaos, the true catalyst for evolution and change. As night fell on Earth, lights appeared across the continents, not just human cities, but new settlements of a dozen different species who had chosen to make humanity's world their home. Somewhere among those lights was Maya's family. Her sister and Niso, evacuated from Haven before its destruction by resistance operatives Alexis had dispatched in secret. The galaxy had witnessed an empire's fall, orchestrated not by superior weapons or vast armies, but by a single human mind that understood the perfect flaw in a seemingly perfect system. That true strength comes not from rigid order, but from the beautiful chaos of possibility.